meeting is being recorded.
Thanks, Bishop Desmond. So good evening and welcome again, everyone, to another of the Windrush National Organisation's online monthly engagement. And we're here to advocate today for a better future for the Windrush generation and all who have been affected as a result of the Windrush scandal. Just encouraging people, if you're not already done so, if you can just stay on mute, and that will be helpful to prevent any feedback. And we'll proceed with this evening's meeting. Now, we're going to start as we always do, and we're just going to have a moment for those who wish to join us. We're just going to have a word of prayer, and then we will commence the meeting formally. So those who wish to join us at this moment, shall we pray? Father, we thank you for your mercy, your goodness, and your love towards us. We ask that you'll continue to be with us and guide us through your hand in this work, and that your will, justice, and love will prevail. We thank you for all that you've been to us and all that you've done already, and continue to lead us as we look to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. And as Bishop Desmond says, we've got an agenda this evening. Please, there will be an opportunity later for a bit of a question and answer. So we'll proceed through the agenda, and then we will let you know when you can come on and ask questions, as it were, as well. We always advocate as well that we recognize that in this meeting, people have experienced some really hardship, and understandably, sometimes people will be very passionate about how they're feeling. We don't mind you making your point, but we do ask that you are respectful to everyone on the call, and we're not going to tolerate any disrespect. So we really just want to observe that as we go through the meeting today. But again, welcome and thank you very much for joining, and I'm going to hand back over to Bishop Desmond Jaddu.
Hi, thank you, Reverend Clive, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June meeting. Sorry, our May meeting with the Home Office. And as I said previously, we've got Gabby Monk and also Matt Smith. Just to reiterate what Reverend Clive said, following our last meeting, one of our directors suggested we build this as a workshop meeting with a panel. And we don't want to do that. However, they are concerned about conduct and how people ask questions, etc. And that's not from the Home Office, I hasten to add. That was from one of our fellow directors. So please, let's treat people how we need to be treated. That's just to reiterate what Reverend Clive said. This open forum, we want it to continue, and we want to manage it as an open forum, but please do work with us on that. Just to let you know, we will not be having a meeting in June because during June are the Windrush celebrations. Some of you may have a different view on that, but we won't be having one in June. And because some of my colleagues and I will all be busy giving thanks for the contribution of our elders. And that's what we'll be doing then. But our July meeting will be Thursday, the 20th of July. Now on tonight's agenda, and just want to thank everyone who turned out at the ARE meeting at the House of Commons as well. And I think it's right to thank the Minister and Gabby, who turned up as well there. And, they listened to the points that were made. And it's up to us, like the WNO, to ensure that we reinforce some of those valid points which are made as well in how we advocate for a better outcome. Now, just to let you know, on tonight's agenda, we've got, obviously, there's an update on the whole Windrush scheme, but we want to focus now on status issues. Now, that isn't from the Home Office. That's from us at WNO, because we've picked up some alarming cases whereby people who were born after 1983 and their parents did not naturalize before the 1st of January 1983, their children are having problems getting passports. Now, that itself could be another scandal. In addition to that, now, to give you a live example of one the Home Office is dealing with right now, the parents arrived in the UK in 1962 and 1967, respectively. They came here, one came with indefinite leave to remain. However, this is the big however, one didn't naturalize until 1987. The other did not naturalize until 2003. They had a child born on the 31st of January, 1983. That child never had a passport, never wanted a passport, never needed a passport. However, that person now has a son who is nearly 16 years old. That 16-year-old son applied to college and he was asked to provide a passport. He was told, you can't have one because your mum's not got one. We don't know what status, what's your mum's status. Now, what's happened is his mother's status, she applied for one. She said, you can't have one because as far as it's concerned, under legislation, you're not British. But she is. However, this isn't to have a rant tonight. This is to say there are people out there who are under the age of 40 who potentially will have a problem. And we have to get them forward, get them out. And this is why Gabby has taken this on and Matt's here tonight, because we need to deal with this. This is a live issue that could rear its head in 10 years' time. And the whole purpose of this is that we don't want it to do that. So hence, I'm gone into that deep explanation because it's important why it is on the agenda. Because the purpose of these meetings is to ensure that we educate people so that we can advocate and encourage those people, particularly now those who are under the age of 40, who do not have a passport, who were born here, to come forward to ensure that their children don't encounter the problems that the elders and the ones who came here, like Glenda Caesar, for example, you know, they don't encounter those problems. And we have a responsibility to do that as well. Later on, we'll be talking about Windrush 75, etc. But now I'm going to hand over to Gabby. So good evening, Gabby and Matt, and welcome.
So apologies for that. Our home office technology doesn't support Zoom calls, so I've got my work laptop open, but I've got my personal phone open. Had to switch one off so I could talk without interference. Thank you very much, Reverend Foster and Bishop Jadu. Really pleased to be here. Always want to engage with you. Happy to listen to people's concerns. Thank you for outlining what you do and don't expect from people here. But myself and the team really want to listen to people. We want to hear what needs to be solved. We want to work with you on what we can do, both improving the scheme and to make it accessible. So I do have a colleague here today, Matt, who hasn't been with us before. Matt is one of my status leads. I'm not expecting him to answer personal queries today, but we really wanted to listen to what your concerns are. And if Matt's okay, I might ask him to give a really quick overview of status as well. If you're happy, I will just share some headlines in terms of figures. I won't do a lot on that because I think showing loads of numbers and making it sound like we're doing lots of things can be quite boring. But I just wanted to share where we were in terms of both the status scheme and the compensation scheme, and then we'll listen to some issues that you want to raise. So in terms of status, we've got 16,000 people issued with documentation. We have around 260 cases we're working on at the moment. We're dealing with those cases fairly quickly, but we're always really keen to hear from people around status issues and how we can progress those. So really keen to hear more on that today. In terms of the compensation scheme, apologies to those of you that were there on Tuesday night at Portcullis House, because this is information we've shared previously, but we've paid out or offered more than £70 million at the moment. Over 62% of the cases who've applied to the scheme have got a final decision. We are moving through cases much more quicker than we were, and I know the amount of time it took to get to decision is something that has always really bothered people. It's bothered us too. At one stage, it was taking us around 18 months to get to looking at cases, but we are now down to about 5 months. We're still improving on what we're doing with other government departments and local authorities. We've got some extra resourcing loaned to us from the citizenship team. You'll all understand, I know, that actually training people to do this work isn't something you can do quickly. And it isn't something I'd want to do quickly, because I want people to do this work who understand how important it is, how complex it is, how important it is to listen to and think about people's experiences. But we've brought some people in from the citizenship team because they understand some of the basics around what you'd need to do to be eligible for the scheme, and those extra people are starting to make a real difference, and that's why we're starting to get through cases more quickly. I'm pleased with that. I'm also really pleased to say we're putting more work into external engagement. The pandemic had a really big impact on what we could do out in terms of talking to people, and I really think coming out talking to people either through these sorts of meetings or face-to-face is incredibly important. So we're starting to build more of a team to go out and do meetings with people face-to-face. I think we've managed to do some work out in various locations: Preston, Windrush, Bristol, Oxford and Croydon and Northampton, and we're really keen to build on that. Working with you is so important, but making sure we get out and talk to people face to face really helps counteract any misinformation that's out there, and I hope can reassure people in communities that we really do want to help people with their applications. So that's a really important piece of work for us too. So I think that's enough in terms of facts and figures. As ever, we're mostly here to listen. If it's helpful and Matt's okay to do it, we can give a really quick overview on the status scheme, and then really happy to listen to your concerns if that's useful.
Thanks, Gabby, and thanks, Bishop Jadu, for the invite and the welcome. It's really nice to be here. And as Gabby has said, I'm the technical lead for citizenship and Windrush casework in Liverpool. And I was fortunate enough and very pleased to be part of the initial Windrush task force that was set up in 2018 when this first came to light. So I spent a couple of months down in Croydon, and really it was very rewarding, upsetting in parts to see the hardships that a lot of people had suffered, but really rewarding work to help as many people as we could throughout that. And I think that's followed through over the last 5 years, and I'm proud of all of the colleagues that work within the help team in the way that they deal with cases and the way they deal with people, and putting the customer at the heart of everything that they do. So yeah, in terms of the Windrush status team, so as Gabby said, we've done 16,000 decisions, and that's a combination of different things. So some people, it has just been confirming that they have a right to be here indefinitely. Other people we've naturalised as British citizens. Children we've registered as British citizens. Other people we've confirmed that they're already British. So there's a lot of positive decisions that we've made throughout that, but varied decisions as well. And some of the cases have been very complicated. But yeah, so as I say, it's been a really rewarding team to work on. If I can just, I know we probably don't want to go too much into the details of that one specific case that you mentioned, but I am aware of it. And I just wanted to give a little bit of a background about the change to the British Nationality Act in 1981 that came in on the 1st of January 83, and the impact that had on UK-born children. So for anyone born in the UK before the 1st of January 83, they would be automatically British. But when the BNA 81 came in, that changed that, and there were different criteria for those born in the UK. For the case that you mentioned, where both of the parents were settled, there isn't a requirement for them to have been naturalised as British citizens in order for a child born in the UK to be British. As long as they are settled in the UK, then that child should be automatically British. So providing that they had maintained their settled status, in that particular case, the child that was born in the UK in January 83 should be automatically British. And I think we're looking into the details of that. So my colleague has got that case and is looking at it. For other children born in the United Kingdom after 1st of January 83, if their parents aren't settled or aren't naturalised, then they're not automatically British. But there are a multitude of registration routes that those children are entitled to apply under. Some just based on their own residency. If they spend the first 10 years of their life in the UK, then there's a route to registration through that. But also for children born in the UK whose parents then go on to settle or then go on to naturalise, those children can then register as children of people who have become British after their birth. So we would always support any application like that under the Windrush scheme. And even for those people that aren't eligible for a consideration under the Windrush scheme, we always look at the bigger picture and try and advise them and steer them to whatever potential route they may qualify under, may be eligible to apply under, which may not be under the Windrush scheme and it may not be a free application, but we would at least give them the advice and the information that they would need in order to go through the correct process to register or naturalise. So I hope that's been helpful. If there's any more information that you need, then please let me know. But otherwise, I will pass back over.
Thanks very much, Matt. And we'll listen. And what I would say, which we always say at these meetings, if there are particular individual cases which people want us to look at, if you can route them through Bishop Jadu and the WNO, we'll definitely pick them up. I did mention to Bishop Jadu when we met on Tuesday night, there is also a route outside the work that Matt's described around statelessness, and the statelessness team work in a different bit of the Home Office, but they also work to me. So I'm also happy to pick up cases that if we can't resolve them through the work of the status team or through any other routes, we can route them into our statelessness team as well. And their remit is very much to make sure that nobody is left without an identity and a citizenship. So in extreme routes, we can pick that up too. But thanks a lot, Matt. I'm not asking you to pick up any specific cases now, but we'll listen to them very much now as well. So back to you, Bishop Jadu.
Thank you very much for that. I think, as I've said, the reason we brought this here tonight is simply because we know out there are people on the age of 40 who have not got a passport, and we believe it's a ticking time bomb ready to happen, waiting to happen rather. And I mean, we just need, I think, well, we've had a little bit of clarity tonight in terms of the fact that we can safely tell people to come forward. I think one of the big issues is still is that trust and confidence in people coming forward. And that's why I think Gabby's basically saying it's not a matter of friendship. It's a matter of the fact that what we need to do is that we will channel those in. So just the case that I'm talking about, we've not mentioned names, we've not breached confidences. We're talking about principles. We've been able to channel that case into the Home Office. And what we're finding as well, which I'll share with you, is that there is a particular issue brewing with people from St. Vincent as well. We've had a few cases like this with people from St. Vincent. We've had a couple of Jamaicans, but St. Vincent seems to be more of an issue because we've had that intergenerational issue as well. So I'm going to hand back to Reverend Clive, who can open it up for Q&A. We want to dedicate a bit more time tonight to Q&A. And over to you, Reverend Clive.
Thanks, Bishop Desmond. So we're going to go into a bit of a Q&A session. So this is an opportunity where you have the chance, as we said, to ask those questions around the schemes. As has been really clearly said, and we sometimes get this on most of the calls, the Home Office can't go into specific details of your case, but So we're kind of framing it so you might not get a solution to your case if you ask a question specifically around an individual case. But if you have got concerns, I'm sure just please do vocalize them, because they could pick them up outside of this meeting. Something that we always do as well as part of WNO, if questions are asked and you can't get an answer tonight, we have a working relationship with the Home Office that we will capture that and take it on board, and then we will follow it up with the Home Office for a response, and very often we can get a written response to you as well. So we want to give an opportunity for you to sort of come on and ask those questions, whether that's around the status or compensation, what you've heard. And I'm going to encourage that you just raise your hand, and then we would prefer if people, if you could please come on camera when you're asking your question, and then we can then allow that to happen. So I'm happy for anyone who's got a point or a question that they want to put to our Home Office colleagues at this point to come forward, and we can do that from here. Okay, I'm going to invite Lorna to come on and make your point.
Hi, evening all. I just wanted to find out the difference between the two dates, because I think it will be a good time now to explain about the 1st of January 1973 and the 80, what date is it? 1988?
81 or
81 date. So what can you explain that why people are required, why you've got those two dates in there for eligibility? So is one specific to the Commonwealth, and you know what's the two dates all about, please?
So thanks very much, Lorna. Matt, are you okay to give a quick explanation, and we can maybe follow up by posting some links to the guidance, because I'm afraid it is, as ever with government legislation, quite complicated. But Matt, let me defer to your specialist knowledge.
Yeah, thanks, Gabby, and thanks for the question. It might seem confusing fixating on those two dates, but they're basically the dates of the implementation of two particular immigration acts. So one of them was called the Immigration Act 1971. They tend to be a couple of years before they actually go live. So we call it the IA 71. That was implemented on the 1st of January, when a lot of the immigration leads to the
breaking up,
Matt, we've got problems. Matt, we've got problems with your line, Matt.
Having indefinite status. Can you hear me okay?
Perhaps if you go off screen and then you're breaking up, and then give it another go. Yes, apologies. I, like Gabby, I can't use my work laptop for this, so I'm just on my iPad. Is that any better? Yes, it is. Go ahead. Okay. So yeah, apologies. I don't know how much of that you caught, but those two dates, the 73 and 83, are with regards to the Immigration Act that came in. So one Immigration Act, the Immigration Act 1971, was implemented on the 1st of January 1973, and that brought in immigration regulations and requirements, but also said that if a person was, I think the language is ordinarily resident, then they acquired settled status at that point. And then the subsequent Immigration Act that came in was the British Nationality Act of 1981. That brought with it some further changes to the immigration regulations, one of which changed how we treated those people born in the United Kingdom. So those two dates are basically the implementation dates of two separate pieces of immigration legislation that were brought in. If there's specific things about those two acts that you'd like a bit more clarity on, then I could try and answer that, or we could take that offline, but that's the importance of those two dates. Great, thanks for that, Matt. And I think Gabby mentioned about potentially posting any helpful guidance or documentation as well, which we can access, and we can certainly put that on the WNO website once that is provided, so that will be helpful. I'm going to, Gabby, did you want to follow up on that in any way?
I was only going to say we could do a summary for you in writing that you could then share. Matt's given a good summary, but it's a complicated area. So if we could just provide you with a short summary for people, then we'll do that and follow up with you in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Deepak if you can come on. Ask you a question. If you come off mute, Deepak.
Good idea. Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone. Just about in the last meeting, there was some presentation on community engagement fund, I think. I think I was right to say that there was going to be some information in relation to that, but I've not received anything. So maybe an update on that particular, please.
Apologies, that was me switching between.
That was a long question, huh? That was a kind of a red alert question.
Sorry, I do apologise for that. I don't have colleagues here from the Community Fund Engagement Scheme. I do know that they are relaunching the tender for the new financial year. I can get an update from Angela to share with you on that. And make sure that that's communicated too. So I understand the intention is that for the coming financial year, there will be an opportunity to rebid for funding for community engagement work. I understand it got too close at the end of last year to make awards, that money's been rolled over into this year. And I'd certainly hope that organisations close to the community and yourselves to do bid for that.
Thanks, Gabby, and thanks for that question, Deepak. And yeah, we look forward for that kind of a summary update on the director of travel around that. I'm going to bring in Delroy, who's got his hand up. Delroy.
Just before you do, Reverend Clive, sorry, there was because Deepak did send me a message. Also as well, Deepak was also talking about how can we increase engagement in relation to the Indian and other communities. He actually sent that in a direct message. And Charlie Williams also mentioned about greater support through community engagement for the African nations as well, which is a part of the strategy that WNO's got anyway. And I do believe the Home Office are looking to widen, they did look to widen the scope of the last tender for the Community Engagement Fund. Gabby, is that still the case? I think that's all we need to know. Is that still going to be the case? Maybe you can't answer it. I don't know.
I'm pretty certain it is, but what I'm going to do is ask Angela to send you an update in the next couple of days to confirm that, if that's helpful.
Yes, that's so that's on the record there. So that's great. Thank you very much for that. Back to you, Reverend Clive. I do apologise for intervening.
No problem, Bishop Desmond. Delroy, if you want to come on and ask a question, that'd be great.
Well, yes, I'd like to ask a question about my situation in particular. I've been here since last year, October, and I'm still waiting for assistance from the VPT team in any capacity. Since I've been requesting funds for clothing, I lived through the whole winter without shoes, a jacket, a shirt, anything from the VP team. They're not assisting me in any way. What should I do now? Since we have, can I refer it to one of these people from them?
So that's about engagement with the voluntary vulnerable persons team, and I know that we had this discussion in previous meetings.
And nothing is still done.
Yeah, the level of engagement and support. Gabby, I don't know if you want to speak in response to any kind of timelines and level of engagement around that. And if there's anything that I'm not sure if you're aware of this particular case.
Yes, so I am, and Mr. Foster, I won't talk about your case in front of other people, of course. I do know you've been in touch with the team, and I do know there has been some assistance, and I do know we're trying to make sure that you get your housing and benefits sorted, but I do think there has been some contact from what I've understood, and I do think we're also waiting on some further information. So I'm really happy if you want to contact me direct through Bishop Jadu, but I do think we have had some contact with you and some support.
Yeah, but
I don't want to talk
yes,
about that
you're
in
right.
front of people because I don't think that would be fair
Yes,
to you.
you're right. I've got a contact today asking me for permission to let a lawyer speak to me, to speak to a lawyer. But I asked him, well, what's going on with me personally? They can't say nothing. But they'll email me, they'll ask me this question, that question, and it's taken months to get anything. I'm told about what they're doing to, they called Twickenham. I put an application in Twickenham in last year, October, that they called them and asked them what's going on. Twickenham has not contacted me yet.
So my understanding is we have been in contact, but if that's not your experience, I think I should speak to you separately outside of this, because it wouldn't be right for me to talk about your personal circumstances in front of lots of other people. And I will invite you to make contact with me direct.
So can you send me a way of reaching you?
Yeah, sure. I'll put my email address in the sidebar, or you can come through Bishop Jadu, but let me put my address in the sidebar. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it, if that's okay.
Thanks, and thanks, Delroy, and we hope that you get progressed on that as well, because it's an important area of the scheme that was set up specifically for the most vulnerable, and it's important that that level of service is responsive. So you've got that commitment for a more detailed engagement. Bishop Desmond, you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, it's one of the areas, Gabby, that I find is the most challenging, which has been the provision, the joined up approach to this and priorities in terms of the Home Office and the local councils. And I don't think it's criticism of the Home Office here. It's more on the local councils in terms of prioritizing people who are caught up in the Windrush, who are part of the Windrush scheme, in terms of prioritizing their rehousing. We've had several incidences of this. I mean, well, because of what I used to do, we managed to get people into Birmingham, and that's still difficult, but we've managed to do it. And I know that June Elizabeth, from my experience, has been doing some work in Northampton as well on this. But it just seems that particularly London, we know there's already a housing issue in London, but it just appears to me that the London, what can the Home Office do? And I think this is Mr. Foster's potential question. What can the Home Office do to ensure that the London councils particularly are not just treating them as just another housing application? Because I don't think that should be the case.
No, you're absolutely right. They shouldn't be treated as just another case. So we do have avenues to prioritise and escalate cases. I mean, I do have a degree of sympathy for a number of the local authorities, particularly ones where housing is really tight. They have a finite number of accommodations, but we will prioritise cases. And if you bring them to our attention, Bishop Jadu will make sure that they get escalated as well. So it's you know, I think we all recognise the pressure on local authorities, but there should be a degree of prioritisation around Windrush. You're absolutely right, and we'll make sure those get picked up.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Sorry, I thought I saw Egg Lucas on. I just put my eyes down, and then I look back up and then the hand is gone. I don't know if Lucas wanted to come in again.
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. I'm going to have to go in a minute there. Can you hear me?
We can indeed. Go.
Sorry.
Yes, go.
All I wanted
forward.
to say is, I'm sorry, I'm not running back on this question, but back in February, I asked this question about how the VPT and local authorities and interaction with the working party or the working group, because at those meetings, there's someone from the community local for housing, Michael Gove's department. Surely they can. I mean, this has been 5 years now. Yeah, and I don't know how many people are in the situation that Delroy's in, but surely, Gabby, that Mr. Gove can personally intervene and say, look, give the local authorities authority to prioritize these people. Surely he can do that. I mean, surely it's something that, and is it Angela or whoever? I mean, surely somebody can do something about it.
Great. Well, thanks, Egg. And I think you're right to raise the profile of this, as Bishop Jada was mentioned, and how you highlighted it as well previously. And I think what we've got from this evening is the commitment from Gabby to follow that up within the right department, as you've indicated as well. And I think that's the accountability that we will continue to hold here as Windrush National Organisation.
All right, Clyde, thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
Delroy just said he spent the last winter in the situation, and winter's only another 5 months away. You know what I'm saying? In reality, we're in May. We've got October,
Absolutely.
November, we'll be back in another winter. And if he's in the same situation again in this winter, it's going to reflect on everybody. And the next question I'm going to ask Gabby is, should the Home Office really be handling this still?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Thanks,
right,
Egg. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gabby, I don't know if you wanted to respond to anything on that last comment.
Yeah, I will
yours,
do.
yep.
I mean, I know the issue of whether people think the Home Office is the right organisation to be running the compensation scheme is a really hot issue for people, and I understand why it is, and I understand people's concern about whether the Home Office should be running the compensation scheme. I think what I would say is that at the point we're at now, if we, and this is not my decision, this would be obviously a political decision. If the scheme were taken out of the Home Office, it would have to stop. It would have to be tendered out to somebody else. And there would be a pause while it was awarded to someone else and new people were trained. And that would potentially take at least 6 to 12 months. And that would cause me concern, because one of the things that has been of real interest to WNO and other groups is how quickly we make decisions. And with the best will in the world, if you moved it to someone else, it would be at least 6 to 12 months before they started making decisions again. Now, that doesn't mean I think people should go, oh, well, we'll put up with the Home Office because it's better than waiting. I can promise you, me and my team are trying really hard to make the right decisions quickly, maximising the amount we give to people. Even if you take the scheme out of government completely, it would still be funded by government and it would still be subject to governance around government. So the sorts of concerns about political interference would still have some, there would still be those concerns there, I think. And although I can see why, had we set the scheme up 5 years ago outside, there might have been merit to that. Where we are now, to take it out now, where I actually believe we're working quite well, I think would make things worse for people. I recognise I'm part of the system and you might expect me to say that, but I think there could be worse outcomes if it were paused and taken outside the Home Office control now. And I will do my very best to pick up the things around issues with other government departments around housing.
Thanks, Gabby, for that. I'm going to bring in June Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I just want to say that 2 statements. Number one, I'll start with one that can be improved. Working across many different government agencies, I feel a bit disappointed that most of them have never heard of the Windrush. Now, I work with pension people up in Scotland, I work with lots of different people, and they have not heard of Windrush. Now, I was aware when I was helping a certain client that the pension credit told me that they've got allocated people who know about Windrush. So if you say you've got a Windrush client, they will know what you're talking about. But I've just found that out. That's just a statement I want to make. And I just want to close with this. I heard that through the grapevine that a particular member of staff named Dawn is retiring, yes? And I just wanted to say that I started with my first client, Dawn has been very, very instrumental in giving me encouragement and giving me the right information. And I just want to say that a particular client of mine, he won't mind me saying, I won't call his name, he's given me permission to use him as a case study. He said maybe a year, April was a year, he came to me without anything. He didn't have no money, he had nowhere to live, nothing at all. He didn't even have his national insurance number, even though he'd been here 50 years, right? So the vulnerable person team, one of the managers, Dawn, not only did she guide me, but she gave me a pathway. And I used that pathway. And I'm pleased to say that the gentleman got into a hotel for 7 months. And 3 weeks ago, am I right, Lorna? 3 weeks ago, he was given his own place. Yeah, he was given a temporary place for a year. And then they're still going to help him, the organisation, to find somewhere of his own. And that is the first time in his life, since he's been in England, that he had a key for his own place. And that's because I followed the pathway that Dawn, the vulnerable person team, gave me. So I have to say thank you publicly, even though Dawn's not here, because she helped to change somebody's life.
Well, thank you so much for that. And I will make sure Dawn gets your thank you. She'll be really touched by it. On your bigger point about DWP not all knowing about what we're doing, that's a bit of a worry. So let me pick that one up for you and go back to DWP and make sure they're aware of it.
Sorry to interrupt. It's not just DWP. It's most of the agencies. You know, even some of the housing people, just the government people. Well, I would say 95% have never heard of Windrush. So like I have to tell him about it. I said, Google it. So I think maybe, you know, like how when what's the country that came over and they're in war at the moment?
Yeah, Ukraine.
When the Ukraine people were coming, there was lots of adverts.
Yeah.
Yes. So we need something like that to kind of help the Windrush people. And also you need something like that to help the people who are helping the Windrush people that don't know about Windrush people. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. That's really helpful because we are always worried about whether we're getting out to tell everybody that needs to know about us, and maybe refocusing efforts on making sure other government departments know as well is a really big part of that. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for sharing that, June. It's very helpful information and feedback, and because we know people are suffering, and it's good to hear something when people do get recourse and some support as well. Gabby and Matt, we know that there was a bit of a disparity between people who went through the status and don't appear to be applying or getting compensation. And I know the Home Office talked about trying to do some kind of piece of work or engagement to try and bridge that gap, whereby we've got a number of people who have applied for Windrush status. And by all intent, when you look at the documentation for, if we just take one section, impact on life, you would have kind of concluded that anyone who's gone, the majority of people potentially could have gone through a Windrush task force, potentially could be eligible for compensation. Is there any work being done about kind of bridging that disparity, or any kind of outreach specifically, or on uplifting that?
So thanks. I'll bring Matt in a minute, and I know Glenda's got a hand up as well. So where people apply for status, we do make sure we tell them about the compensation scheme as well. You're right. We've had 16,000 people granted status, and we've only had around 6,000 applications for compensation. It's not always the case that where people haven't had a status that they will have necessarily suffered as a result of it, but we do really want to make sure that we check that out with people. So there is some information available. Matt, I don't know if you're in a position to add anything on that in terms of the communications, but if not, I can follow it up in writing.
No, only to echo what you say, that we do communicate the kind of the existence and the benefits of the compensation scheme to status customers. And as you say, Gabby, it may just be that they don't feel that they would qualify, because a lot of the people that we deal with haven't necessarily had difficulty evidencing their entitlement to be here, which I think was one of the main things that we were established to rectify, to give people that confirmation that they had to demonstrate to other agencies. But as the scheme's gone on, we've also encountered people who haven't had those difficulties, but simply want to access the scheme for confirmation of their status or to naturalise. So yeah, there may be some messaging that we can think about how we're communicating the benefits of the scheme. But yeah, we can take that away, but nothing to add other than that. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. What I will do is I'll send a copy of the information that goes out on status claims, and perhaps you could review that and say if you think we should do more, or whether it's adequate, or make any suggestions on if you think it needs tweaking, if that would be useful. But I'd appreciate your input on that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay, I'm going to bring in Glenda Caesar.
Hi everyone, hi Gabby, and hi Matt. I'll just start off with what June Elizabeth said, because I've had someone who I assisted, and the vulnerable persons team did assist them, and it's practically sort of like changed their life. So that's another good thing to come out of it. They were made an award and they were quite happy, but along the way, having the vulnerable persons teams there sort of like support them, assisted them a lot, and took some of the pressure off of me as well. So we're grateful to say that, but that's not my concern. My concern is with, and I have brought it to the attention of your other team members, but as a senior manager, I wanted to see here your views on it. It's in relation to a lot of claimants who are putting in their claims and coming back with nil award when it comes to the employment part of the claim. This whole scenario started because services and other access to jobs was taken away from people. So when someone who's put in an application who had a history of working and was unable to get a job, let's say 3, 4 years, 5 years, right, since this, they were told you can't, your position's been terminated. What I'm finding is that the caseworkers are not taking the time to look at what HMRC is saying to them, looking at the evidence that HMRC is providing to them. It may be a P60, it may be a termination letter, it may be a letter where the person applied but couldn't get it because they didn't have the documentation. And the caseworkers are not looking on that and following the policy, which had been stated. I'm not sure if it's 1,400 per month or if it's 1,700 per month that they would pay out, or if they're following the 13,000 or that they said that they would pay for every year that you was unemployed. But a lot of it's coming back nil award.
Okay.
And this isn't just one person. So I can't say to you, I'm going to say to you a case. There is a case that I know is being looked at, but it is only one person. And we're finding that a lot. And I don't know, how do you amend that? Because maybe the caseworkers are not following the policy properly, or not reading it up, or not taking in notice, because you cannot write to someone and say, we contacted HMRC and they said, oh, you was working such and such a day, but you haven't worked since then. Obviously they can't because they didn't have the paperwork, but yet they're getting a nil award. So how can you amend that? How do we sort this out? Because nil awards, that's ridiculous, because the person had a work history. So you go on what they used to earn, or go on what the policy said in the beginning, the 13,000 per year for the times that you wasn't able to be employed, not for each year. That's my question to you, or Matt, whoever would like to answer it, please.
So that's me, not Matt. Matt's definitely status. So couple of things. One, specific cases are always helpful because I can get the team to review them, Glenda, and that's great. But the general principle, happy to go back and ask some of my quality checking team to do a bit of a dip sample on that and see if they're getting it right. And then just obviously encourage you to send any specifics through, because that's much easier to check. But then just a third thing, the issue of employment and lost earnings. Bishop Jadu's raised this with us in relation to a specific case, but also looking at a general principle where someone has lost a job and then taken much lower paid earnings just to support their family, which of course we'd all do, and whether we can look at compensating for potential lost earnings, and we're having a little look at that. So 3 things there. So yes, specific cases we'll look at. 2, I will have a look at the general principle. And 3, Bishop Jadu, we're still looking at that general issue and hope to come back to you. I think you've made a really compelling argument on that point. I can't promise we'll change things because it's always going to be subject to ministerial approval, but I think it's a good case. So we'll come back to you on that as soon as we possibly can, if that's okay.
I just want you leave yourself open for a serious court case because you've created, I mean, you've created a policy that you're not keeping your word to. I'm not saying you, I'm saying the scheme. So they have to look on it, because there isn't only just one case. If Desmond's got one, and I may have 3.
Oh yeah,
so I think it's something that they need to look into, because what happens then is that there's a particular case where they've been made an offer, but they're not willing to take the offer because that part of the thing has been left out. But then they're asking, oh, okay, we'll send it back and we're going to review it. So it goes back instead of it staying, and it was not their mistake in the beginning. No. So this is something what needs to be looked at.
It definitely does. And I'd just be really clear, it's definitely not the mistake of any of the people applying to the scheme. I think what I would say is when the scheme was devised, it had input from a lot of people and it got set up on the terms it got set up. As we've started to deal with real people and real human lives, we've realised we haven't covered everything eventuality. People's lives are different. They're complicated. We didn't think of everything. Quite happy to admit that. So, we've made changes to homelessness. We've made changes to extended family members. We want to look at that thing about earnings and the gap between what people carried on and what they could have earned. That can be quite complicated, but I think it's something that is worth looking at. And that is one of the things that is really important about talking to you in WNO, because there will always be people's circumstances that we hadn't thought of. Life's complicated. everybody's human lives are different. And I really want to try to reflect that in what we do. So definitely not looking at it just for one person, Glenda, looking at it as, did we get this slightly wrong? Should we change? So I
Thank you,
can't
Gabby.
promise, but I'm really listening on it, okay?
I hope I don't have to bring it back at the next engagement meeting, but thank you, Gabby.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay. If I may, Reverend Clive, on this, so that we've got complete transparency for everyone. The issue that we've brought to the Home Office is employment, which is, it's borne out by strict employment law when someone is unfairly dismissed. So we've got mitigated loss of earnings, we've got index-linked loss of earnings, and we've got future loss of earnings, which the scheme doesn't cover. So when the scheme was set up, it never covered those, and those eventualities are now at play. So it's just to give you transparency there in terms of the three issues in terms of loss of earnings. And also as well, I think this is my old law days, I'm trying to remember now, but I think it was 1978, there was the Employment Consolidation Protection Act. I mean, I may have it wrong now, it could have been superseded. But people who were nearing, at that time when there was a lot of redundancies, when people were nearing being made redundant and they weren't in a position to take another job, they would get a higher rate because of the issue of retraining. And we've got some people who are close on retirement who basically can't work again as well. So clearly those aspects in terms of loss of earnings really need to be looked at, and that's what's being presented. I did have a response from Caroline Lawless to say that hopefully they may have something for us, some guidance by the end of May. But it's something that's really, we've got to ensure that we get it right moving forward, simply because some people did go and take lower paid jobs rather, just to ensure that they looked after their family. And one of the things I just want to assure people on the call tonight, from a WNO perspective, when we do pick up on these, we do actually take them to the Home Office and we present them with as much evidence as we possibly can. So please be assured of that. In the sidebar, Reverend Clive, I think Clem Okayo, and I apologize if I got your name wrong, it says the bar has been set too high to get compensation. In addition, it's very discretionary. Whilst one member of my family qualified for a minimum payment of 10K, the rest of us were denied despite sharing similar circumstances. I'm not sure if that was a close family payment or a primary claimant claim, but I think we've heard this before, where there's some ambiguity in decision makings when you've got multiple claims from the same family where there have been issues, Gabby. I don't know if you want to, if Okaya Clem wrote to us the circumstances, probably something to look at. I don't know, Gabby.
Sure, that's fine. I mean, we are always happy for WNO to raise cases with us where people are happy to do that. If you want us to have a look, we will happily do that. I mean, what I will say in terms of what the rules are about the scheme, as Bishop Jaddu's outlined, we are really keen to identify things that we might not have covered that we should have thought of. In terms of generally, the scheme is as it is, but we're always keen to look at how we can improve both how we administer it and whether there are things that need changing. Access to the compensation, I think, is one in terms of what it covers. Is not likely to be changed wholesale, but by all means, send us your details and we can have a look at it.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Reverend Clive, do you want to take that one from CT in the chat?
Yeah, so I think there's Charlotte, who has made a very insightful observation with regards to people may actually, and I think Glenda Caesar was alluding to this, people may actually take up an offer of compensation, but they're not necessarily happy with the means by which they've got there, and that they've actually done it and accepted it. And I think it's really important for the Home Office to understand the people who've actually taken up the compensation, some of the issues that they feel that they have experienced, because I guess in some instances it may appear that accepting a claim is the end of the story. But Charlotte has indicated that some claimants are not necessarily happy with it, and suggesting, is there a means of actually recording if the person did get it or didn't get it or did accept it, of explaining their complaint about that process. So I'm not sure if that's anything that is actually thought about in terms of you following up with people who have actually accepted an offer and would probably want to engage in sort of the experience.
So from our perspective, obviously, Charlotte, your case is with the Ombudsman, and we will absolutely wait and see what the Ombudsman says to us. The issue around pensions, private pensions, is quite a difficult one, and if they make recommendations on that, that's fine. We will absolutely listen to that. At the moment, private pensions are outside the scheme. If the Ombudsman tells us we should think about that, of course we'll listen. I think your point is a really good one. I totally recognise people who think that the amount they've been given is a good amount. I don't expect their reaction to that is to feel happy, because people are being compensated for something terrible that happened to them. But if the Windrush National Organisation shared information with us about why people weren't happy, or more that we could do, or why the compensation was inadequate, I would be really interested in looking at data on that. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think if I ask for that data, people probably wouldn't want to tell us in a formal way. But if you had insight on that, we would be really interested in it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Gabby, because I think you can appreciate there's a number of campaigners on the call, and that when we're walking with people who are going through the process, there's a lot of different experiences that we pick up and sometimes have to act as to mitigate on as well, or advocate on. So that may be something as part of WNO that we could probably talk to you about on a more strategic level going forward as well, and particularly in light of some of the one of the particular Wendy Williams report that is recommendations that is actually changing with regards to engagement. Okay, thank you. I'm going to invite colleagues, if anyone has got any more questions or a particular point that you want to ask of our Home Office personnel on the call, that you do so now, because if not, we're going to move over to the next part of the agenda. So final call out for any more questions before we move on to the next part of the agenda. You can get them lined up. Charlie Williams.
Hi, thanks, Clive. Can you tell me, is there such a policy as one claim per family? And also, could you give us an example where there's been several awards to the same family? And thirdly, what support examples can you give us of some of the African nations that you've supported in any way?
So good questions. Just in really general terms, yes, we do pay multiple members of the same family, depending on the things that have impacted on them as individuals. And the scheme is not limited to the Caribbean, and we have paid out to people from other nations, including African nations. I can't give you specific examples, but I can say that definitely is true in terms of the compensation that's been paid. I know that's a bit vague, apologies.
Yeah.
I think you'll understand why I can't talk about specifics, but that absolutely is the case.
So would you say you're reaching out to them with no problem, or do you need more support on that from WNO, for example?
So we're always really keen to work with anyone in the community that can help us reach out to groups. There's always been a huge debate about, are we getting to everybody? Are these numbers high enough? I think there's always been a feeling that there could be more people that aren't being reached, and we get lots of feedback from people telling us about people who've never heard about the scheme. So anything we can do to reach out to different community groups to publicise the scheme, I'm keen to hear about that, and we can work to make sure we get people to events and out to the communities.
Okay, and lastly, very quickly, what are you doing on the international stage regarding Windrush?
So good question. So we have done work with the High Commissioners across all of the Caribbean and across other Commonwealth groups. That always seems obviously a good thing to do, but I wonder about how that kind of trickles down to people. So any other contacts that people might suggest that we use, or ways of communicating? We have done things with local newspapers in the Caribbean as well. And again, I could always pick things up with my engagement colleagues if people have suggestions on what more we can do.
Right, so nothing solid at all then. I mean, we're talking 5 years now.
Well, good work with the commissioners in other nations, and what I can't speak for is what they've then done with that information. I haven't got visibility on that. I hope they've done outreach work as well with people that could be impacted.
Any of the Home Office members, have they actually gone abroad, or is that just off the cards?
So we generally use the Foreign and Commonwealth Office for international work. It would be, they've got the local communications, they've got the links with commissions, they've got the links with embassies. That tends to be how we do it. I'd be really wary of sending my people from the Home Office. It could look like a big jolly, couldn't it, if I sent people abroad? So that's our usual way of doing things in other countries, as well as using community groups here as much as we can, and obviously social media, which is not as nation-based as local communications.
Okay, thanks, Gabby.
Okay. If it's okay with everyone on the call, I'm going to let Matt go, who's been here to do status. But Matt, obviously, I'll let you go. Thanks for attending. We'll pick up some of the status issues, but I'll stay here, obviously.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone, and thanks for the invite. And it's been really nice listening to you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Gabby, I think well, I've got one more question, and then I'll go to June Elizabeth first, and then we'll move on to the next agenda item. June.
Yes, I just wanted to say today, Glenda and myself and a couple of the Windrush advocates, we were in a meeting with the engagement team, and they are planning to go to Brixton to the 7-day Adventist, but on a Sunday, because Saturday's their Sabbath, and it's going to be an international event, and people in Toronto, America, Jamaica, Ghana, and Nigeria. So it's all been arranged, and the Home Office engagement team are going to give a presentation, and then Glenda had suggested that we give the audience time to ask questions. So it's not going to be like 20 minutes and 10 minutes question time. Yes, so that's what took place today, and I think that was very well welcomed. And another thing about the international. When I was trying to get someone's passport in Jamaica, the then Tom, he used to be in your job.
Tom Gregg.
Yeah, Tom
he's at
Gregg.
Passports now, yeah.
What he did, he contacted the Jamaican, well, or the British person in somebody in Jamaica, and they got the passport, they got the birth certificate for me.
Great.
So that was working across, you know, just to give an example that it does happen.
Thank you. Thanks, June Elizabeth.
Thanks, Jude Elizabeth. I can't see any more questions, so I'm going to just ask this last question for myself, and then we'll move on to the next agenda item. But could you just update us, and forgive me if we've already got to a place where we know what's happening, but with the cross-working group that used to exist, because some of these questions that are coming up, sometimes that group would have been dealing with that. Is there any update in terms of, can you just remind this call where we are in terms of where that position has landed, the cross-working group?
Yeah, so the cross-working group had a meeting yesterday, and I think the group is planned to finish and to wind up in July, but with an undertaking that communications will still continue with the Home Office and the people who are involved in that group. And just to say, from our perspective, we find the meetings with yourselves that we attend useful as well, and we want to continue to do that.
Okay, thanks a lot for that update, Debbie. I'm going to hand over to Bishop Desmond.
Yes, thank you everyone for your input. Just a couple of updates before we move on to the next agenda item. Concerning vulnerable persons team, I can only ever speak about how I find them, just as Glenda Caesar does. I know that we've had 2 specific bereavements where we needed money very quickly, and the payments were made. One was actually made the day of the funeral because we didn't have much notice to do that. And ironically, that family's actually been turned down for compensation, but they were told the money paid for the funeral, that can remain in place. That's something we're looking into. That's nothing I'm drawing to Home Office's attention tonight. It's just saying how we managed to work with them. Because we've got to say it how it is for us as advocates when we're doing this work. In terms of overseas applicants, we've had a recent case that's been resolved today where some folks were turned down in Jamaica. They came to the UK. We've now managed to get them indefinite leave to remain, and their right of abode is actually being looked at as well. And that's been expedited. But one of the things I'm going to say to fellow advocates on the meeting tonight, a lot of the times we all have to ensure that we've got the ammunition there ready to actually go back to the Home Office. And when I say that, I don't say that in an aggressive way, because clearly we have to make the case sometimes, and that's what we have to do. So it's important that when we talk to people, we get the full SP in order that we can then go to the Home Office with that information and then achieve the better outcome, because that's what WNO is here for. So if you want to say I'm advertising WNO, well, guilty as charged. But there has to be that way of working in order that we can maintain this. I mean, one of the things, Gabby, and this is just a statement, don't respond respectfully, I believe the Home Office missed a trick when they disbanded the stakeholder advisory group, which I think was really more effective. And I think really we need to go back to having that type of a group, because it brought together the people on the ground in a formal setting with the minister to really deal with some of these issues, and also as well try and iron out solutions. And I think that's what we really need to be doing with that as well. And we welcome as well the fact that we continue with these WNO meetings as well. And just let everyone know, Nigel's on leave till the end of May, a well-deserved break, one can say. But obviously, at the end of the day, Gabby said straight away, I'll step in tonight and attend this. So thank you for that, Gabby, as well. So moving on now, my colleague, fellow director Nigel Guys, he's on here 2 or 3 times. Now, he's supposed to be talking about Windrush 75 and raising the standard, and I'll talk about events after that, if Nigel is able to speak to us. Are you able to speak, Nigel, or do we go to plan B?
He should be able to. He's got 2 devices signed in at the moment.
Yeah. I think we just give him a sec and see if he wants to, because he's more eloquent at explaining it than me. All right, I think he's just come in with the second one and another one's dropped out. Okay.
I'm here.
Ah, great, brilliant. Good evening, Nigel, over to you.
Hey, good evening. Bear with me. Hello, everyone. I've been struggling to get on the platform, been on my phone and my laptop, and I was trying to have a presentation regarding the raising the standard for Windrush. As we know, Windrush 75 is soon upon us, and what we've been doing collectively with the WNO is contacting many organisations up and down the country to be involved in raising the standard for Windrush. And the standard is a flag that has been designed, and it's been raised since 2019, and it's got great traction in many local authorities, universities, the NHS, even Network Rail, and the Houses of Parliament, and the Jamaican House of Parliament, and it's actually gone international. So, and also I have to say that the Home Office also raised the Windrush flag. And what we're doing this year is, because it's the 75th anniversary, there's many organizations who are actually doing a civic flag raising. And I can say that is one of the only, what would I say now, national event that's happening up and down the country. There's many events that are happening which are unique to the towns and cities. But what's happening with the Windrush National Organization and its partners is that we're raising the Windrush flag. And we're hoping that if your town or city has not been involved with raising the standard, it's about enabling your local authority, your organization, your community center, your Windrush advocates to be the champion to ensure that the community is acknowledged and our Windrush elders are acknowledged. And the flag, when we say raising the standard, it's all about us raising every facet of the contributions that have been made to be acknowledged by the Windrush generation. So if you know of your local authority not having an event that involves a flag raising, if you have, brilliant. If you don't, please let us know. We'll contact the local authority. If you've got contacts, contact them. And it doesn't take a local authority to raise a flag. It doesn't need planning permission. If you're wanting to raise a flag, then you can do that as well. And the flags are supplied. You look on the WNO website, you'll find out how to find out more. And there's many events that's happening, as Bishop Desmond, as Jadu has said, happening around the UK. And if you're not involved, get involved. Let's acknowledge. And yes, we are dealing with the conflicts and challenges that are there faced by the narrative of the Windrush scandal and the hostile environment. But we must not forget the contributions of putting the great back into Britain. Sorry, I don't have a slide to show you the flag, but if you've not seen the flag, there'll be information on the WNO site. So do get involved, do raise the standard for Windrush. And also, there's a commemorative pin badge, and I don't know how big your screen is, but if you can see, this has been designed and it's got the 75 in it, and there's a Windrush pin badge as well. If I can, I don't know if anybody's seen, I'm just taking it off my coat, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but the Windrush pin badge is available. And you can see the 75 in there, if it's the right way up. It'll be worn by many people. And I'm hoping that you too can be involved. And all funds that proceeds, there's no profit made. It all goes back into community initiatives that uplift our community. So do get involved in raising the standard for Windrush 75 with the WNO and all the other organizations. around the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel, for that. Great. So we're on now to what's happening. WNO on the road will be starting after Windrush 75, and WNO on the road will mean that means basically that we're going to be on the road. We're going to be having public meetings in various parts of the country. Our list is 20. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it somehow anyway as well. And on our list is included, I think, 3 parts in areas of Wales, Belfast, Northern Ireland, and also 3 areas of Scotland as well. So do look out for that. Now, a couple of other things. On Thursday, the 8th of June, myself and Glenda Caesar will be taking part in a panel discussion at the council chambers in Bradford City Hall. So we'll be there. Thank you, Nigel, for arranging that. And that is a part of Windrush 75, Windrush Generations, Bradford Council, and WNO as well will be there. And on the 9th, which is the following evening, they're doing a Windrush Family Games evening, I understand. Glenda will like this because this is at the Dominican Centre in Bradford as well. I've been there before. Great place, great atmosphere to be at. Also as well, 25th of June, I know that many churches are having their services. There's the one in Birmingham that I'm responsible for hosting. That's the 25th of June at 4:45 at the New Testament Church of God, Lascelles Road, Birmingham, B19 1MP. Now remember, to some of these services, do invite your Lord Mayor, your Lord Lieutenant, your leaders of the councils, etc., as well, and your MPs. We've done that in Birmingham, but please do that as well if you know anyone's doing services. I think I'm in a Derby in the morning, on that morning, but then we're in Birmingham in the evening as well. I know that Reverend Clive has got some events as well. Just going over to those now, because we're giving them now, because we've not got a meeting in June, but you'll find a lot of this on our website or the British Futures website, because I am a member of the steering group on British Futures as well. Thursday, the 8th of June at 6 o'clock in Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University. And there's a Windrush lecture by Colin Grant. And that's also as a part of the Windrush 75 celebrations. And there's WNO input into that as well. Windrush Celebration 75. This is what's going on in Nottingham. 22nd of June, there's a civic service and exhibition. There's also lunch and live entertainment at Binks Yard in Nottingham. And on the 21st, the Windrush Cuisine and Youth Celebrations at Binks Yard as well. And then the Thanksgiving service is also at Binks Yard on Sunday, the 25th as well. And there's a whole host of other events that will be taking part. Please, if you've got an event, send them in to us. We will forward them to the British Futures Windrush 75 website for you. So we'll take care of that. And also as well, what we're doing, we'll place what we can on the Windrush WNO website. An appeal this evening in Birmingham in our service. One of the things that my choir master has asked us for is they're doing a song to reflect the importance of marriage to the Windrush generation, because many of our parents, you know, we've got the wedding photos. And if you wish, only if you can, and please get the consent of the family, if you can scan them and send them in to us, we're trying to create a collage of wedding photos. You know, the wedding photos with the groom in the bow tie and it's slightly twisted and things like that. But it sends across an important element of the values of the Windrush generation. They believed in marriage. And the point is, it's just to reflect who we are as a people. So this is about bringing in that element as well. So please, if you've got any pictures, just take a photograph of it. You can either WhatsApp it to the WNO number, which is online, or just email it in to us and we'll be happy to just turn them into a collage. And also as well, if you want to put your parents' name on it, where they were married and the date, please feel free to do so. My parents, for example, were married in Bradford, where my cousin Nigel is. You know, they were married in Bradford. They were up there in 1962. There you go. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we want to create that atmosphere as well. Whilst we're fighting, we want to create that atmosphere of who we are as a people, and not let the scandal try to define who we are. Let the historic contribution define who we are. And that's the end of the sermon for tonight. I'm not going to go any further on that one as well. So before I hand to Reverend Clive for vote of thanks and closing prayers, I just want to thank you for supporting these meetings, and we will resume on the 20th of July. In the meantime, however, all issues which have been raised, please channel them into us. And as Gabby has said, we do send them into the Home Office. And hopefully, I'm hoping that by the time we meet next, we might have some information about loss of earnings, no pressure, but we may have some a solid update on that, and also as well on other initiatives that we're looking at. Finally, 27th of October is our international conference in Birmingham at the Edgbaston Park Hotel in Birmingham, which is within the Birmingham University campus. We'll be having information out shortly on that. Please save that date. There's a daytime conference and there's an evening dinner dance to raise money for the Windrush Community Fund. So please get that date, spread that date across. We will be looking at compensation and status. We will also be looking at other areas that impact upon the Windrush generation, particularly what we pick up from these meetings as well. Nigel, you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in terms of one of the road tours that the WNO is doing. They're organising with local people in Yorkshire, and there's going to be a Windrush conference happening on the 13th of July, and it is known as the Seven Seas of Windrush Conference. And Gabby, I'm hoping that some members of your team will be able to attend. We'll be sending you some details because we need to kind of raise that awareness about the compensation scheme, the status scheme, but also all things Windrush. So hopefully your team, because the conference will be
we'd be really happy to.
And,
thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, great. So that's it from me. Next month, as I've said, we take a break, but we take a break to honor our elders. That's what we need to be doing. And one thing I'll say to you this, I mean, on a personal note, I've suffered this year so far, 15 family members died and one died 48 hours ago again. So let's try and give them the flowers while they can appreciate them. Reverend Clive, over to you. Have a good evening. God bless you all, and we hope to see you in July. Reverend Clive.
Bishop Desmond. So again, just want to thank our Home Office colleagues for joining us this evening and for sharing with us. And thank you all of you who were able to join this session today as well. So we're just going to end in how we started. We're just going to ask for God's blessing and have a word of prayer. So those of you who want to join in prayer, we'll do so now. Father, we just thank you for your goodness and your mercy towards us. We thank you that you are still on the throne. We ask that you'll continue to bless the Windrush generation. We pray that you will watch over a great generation that has given so much. Father, we ask that your hands will be upon us to, again, ensure that all things will work in accordance to your will and that justice will prevail. Father, we thank you for all that you've given us already and continue to watch over us and keep us. Remember our respective families, communities, nation, and indeed the whole world. And we just ask that you'll continue to, again, guide our footsteps and our thoughts, and that your will be done as we look to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Good night, everyone, and have a very good evening. And as was said earlier, let's celebrate the great Windrush generation. Take care.
Thank you all.
Good night. One love. Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.